Tariffs go into effect tomorrow, and we still need to make the Trump tax cuts permanent. We'll give you some tips if tomorrow's storms damage your house. And the wildest story of the week comes to us from Maumee. Wait until you hear this.
It's a Scott Sands Show.
Hey there, how y'all doing? It's episode 2554 of the Scott Sands Show, the podcast. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Facebook, X, all of the platforms, really. Please, if you haven't done so, subscribe, like, share, all the things. Find me on X, the Scott Sands Show. Actually, it's Scott Sands Media. I forgot my own handle for a second. The Scott Sands Show on Facebook, the Scott Sands Show on YouTube, and all of the podcast platforms. Producer Tiger the Cat is next to me, and you can tell he is starting to get restless and may make a surprise appearance here anytime. As we're speaking on Tuesday afternoon, just underway in the U.S. House of Representatives, the House Oversight Committee is starting its hearings on the JFK assassination. No, it's not a flashback. It's not time travel to the 1960s or the 1970s or the 1980s. Representative Anna Paulina Luna is holding hearings on the JFK assassination. One of the key testimonies today coming from JFK director of the movie, Oliver Stone, and he's rehashing many of the conspiracy theories made famous in his movie. I talked to author Gerald Posner about this a couple of weeks ago now when the JFK files first came out, and really there is absolutely nothing new regarding a conspiracy in any of the files that have been released, and these conspiracies have generally all been debunked. There's a terrific story from the Rolling Stone, I think from like 1991 or sometime around that time period, that debunks most of the conspiracy theories espoused by JFK. And look, by Oliver Stone. And look, I love the movie and I love going down the rabbit hole about the JFK assassination, but everything has nearly been debunked. And I'm frustrated with this hearing today because there are so many other things that we should be looking into in Congress. If this was a waste of time, it's a waste of taxpayer money. And with all of the efforts by DOJ to find government waste, this would be an example of government waste. And all this is really doing, I don't know if it's throwing red meat to many of the Trump base, but it's a waste of time. And if you don't believe me, go back and read Gerald Posner's book, Case Closed, or listen to our conversation about the JFK files itself. And I hope you would agree with me. I'm fascinated by the entire thought. Was it the government? Was it the CIA? Was it the mafia? Was it the communists in Russia and Cuba? No, it was a lone nut with a gun at the end of the day. A lot of really strange things happened. Call them coincidences if you want. And certainly the government mishandled all of the information related to the JFK assassination, which fueled these conspiracies. But there's nothing new in the files, and giving credence at a congressional hearing to Oliver Stone, I think, is a mistake for this country and a waste of our taxpayer money at the end of the day. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but with the hearings today, certainly worth mentioning. I do want to lead with this story I saw yesterday that got national attention from Maumee. The headline itself is pure gold. Obese woman with 5 lovers ordered them to abduct and torture 6th man who displeased her. And someone commented when I shared this on Facebook, I hope that's the title of the Lifetime movie, Obese Woman with 5 Lovers. I would watch that show. I think maybe, probably not. And you've got to see the mugshots of these 5 guys and her. How does she have 5 lovers? And here's the whole story. Martina Jones, she's 28. Her husband, Michael, who's also 28, boyfriends Aaron Bradshaw, Austin Bradshaw, David Cessna, and Chance Johnston face multiple serious charges over the kidnapping. Martina Jones, her husband Michael Esqueda, 28, so they're both 28, same age. Someone pointed this out to me. Aaron Bradshaw, 49, and Austin Bradshaw, 23. Those are their ages. Is that a father-son duo that both were in a relationship with this obese woman who is in this polyamorous relationship, shared multiple children with a group of men? It's just a weird story. Police say the 26-year-old victim was kidnapped on March 14th, held against his will for over a week at the Red Roof Inn in Maumee. He was brutally beaten with a baseball bat, forced to stand for extended periods, and given food and water just once a day. Investigators say the captive was shockingly only allowed about 10 hours of sleep during the entire 7-day nightmare. He was essentially tortured, assaulted over that time frame of a week, said Josh Pro, who is the chief of police in Maumee. Went on to explain in the story that his injuries were results of being struck with a baseball bat, struck with fists, elbows, stomping on him when he was on the ground, which over time resulted in multiple fractured bones. You gotta see these mugshots. It looks like the Manson family. And this Martina Jones woman, the obese woman with the 5 lovers, allegedly the mastermind behind the entire operation, giving direct orders to her boyfriends to beat and assault the victim. Apparently, this whole ordeal began after a dogfight broke out at their home, which, from the story, I've got to assume she shared with the 5 men, maybe the six guys. And instead of truly explaining what happened, Martina Jones, the obese woman, allegedly falsely blamed the victim of breaking her arm. And the lie is what sparked her lover's brutal revenge. This victim rescued only when his captors allowed him a brief trip to a nearby speedway on March 21st. And during this moment of freedom, he managed to make contact with someone who then alerted his mother. The chief of Maumee police said when he was there, he made contact with an individual who got in contact with the victim's mother, who rushed to the Red Roof Inn to rescue her son, and police were called to the scene. I'm chuckling at this whole story. I'm not making light of this poor guy getting beaten nearly to death by these 5 other guys, but the whole story is incredulous. The hotel was placed under surveillance by Maumee police, and all 6 suspects were arrested before they could flee. The victim had injuries covering his entire body. He's expected to survive. But during this investigation, police discovered that Martina Jones, the obese woman, reportedly maintained romantic relationships with all 5 of her male accomplices and has multiple children with them. I have no idea where the children are or were. The chief said it's clearly a strange situation when you have multiple adult men involved in a relationship with a female and this whole felonious assault kidnapping takes place. Definitely not something that is normally happening in Maumee. No, I don't think it really is. Last week, all 6 were indicted by a grand jury on 1 count of kidnapping, 3 counts of felonious assault, 2 counts of tampering with evidence. This should be, and it's a shame that On Patrol Live was not following Maumee police last week for this story. Again, I'm chuckling. I'm not making fun of the poor guy as much as I am laughing at this whole scene of the obese woman who has 5 lovers. I've got to wonder, as one of you also asked, if there are a father-son who both have children from this woman, why all 5 would agree to this romantic situationship with this obese woman, and why they would follow her orders to kidnap and brutalize a 6th man. I don't understand how any of that happens, but that's the big story out of Maumee. Probably one of the most scandalous things that has happened in Maumee in a while. Although Perrysburg is certainly, and I didn't clip this story, but I did see the headline earlier. Perrysburg may be fighting for a little bit of of contention for that title this week, as apparently a teacher followed a school bus home to find out if one of their students was completing their homework. You want your teachers involved with their kids, but probably not to that extent, is what I'm saying. The NFL is meeting this week and looking at some rules changes. I think we could all agree that the best change that they've made is that both teams will now be allowed to possess the ball in an overtime situation. Before, the rule was awful. If the team who wins the coin toss scores a touchdown, they win the game and the other team doesn't even get a chance. If they didn't get a touchdown, the other team would have the opportunity to score a field goal or a touchdown and win the game. But now they've reduced the overtime length to 10 minutes, and both teams will get to possess the ball. I think that makes the overtime play more fair and more exciting for fans. We're also looking at using electronic technology to determine first downs, which is good. Expanded replay options. They're moving the kickoff return, I think. I don't know if this one passed, but to the 35-yard line, which they think will encourage more runbacks. I think it makes the kickoffs less exciting for fans. And they're also considering what could happen to the infamous tush push play, the sneak play where teammates push the quarterback over the line for a first down or for a touchdown. The Eagles do it well. The strategic innovation of the tush push has been controversial over the last few years. It seems unlikely that it would be deemed illegal since it's gained momentum, but now there are more owners that say there's a real possibility that this play could be pushed out of the game forever. It's certainly been a polarizing weapon because it looks more like a rugby play than professional football. But coaches who have voiced concern about the play say it's not about the play's aesthetics or competitive advantage. They say it should be outlawed because it presents a safety concern for players. The only problem with that argument is there's currently no evidence of it posing more than a danger than any other quarterback sneak or sneak play. Even Sean McDermott from the Bills, one of the leading proponents of the bans, acknowledged it as much, saying even though there's not significant data out there to this point, my big concern is for the health and safety of players, which would shock me because coaches and owners really have shown no concern for player safety. If this was truly a problem, you would expect the NFL Players Association to perhaps raise their hand more than they have. Perhaps we'll get into that later this week. My friend Yvette from Bougie Sports, a podcast out of Cleveland, will join me. We'll talk about what's happening with the Browns as we get closer to the NFL draft. And also, obviously, the Guardians are in action. The Cavs are making a nice run. And there's a whole quarterback controversy in Cleveland, whether or not they'll draft another quarterback and kill their career as well, or will Deshaun Watson ever play? Even the Haslams this week admitting that they made a mistake in the Deshaun Watson deal, something that fans, whether you're a fan of the Browns or not, have known. It should have been crystal clear to NFL owners, general managers, and coaches that it was a bad deal, but apparently they're finally admitting to that fact. My thanks to longtime friends of the Scott Sands Show, like RuxaHealth.com, 4GuysAndARoof.com, Farnsworth Cocktail Bar, 3rd Street Cigar, The Art of Men's Grooming, Whiskey Red Saloon, all partners of mine here on the podcast. Please support them and continue to support local advertisers of the radio station as well. I know it's April Fool's Day. Many of you may have been caught up in some radio pranks today. I shared on Facebook earlier something I did that was fun at the time, and in retrospect, probably not a good idea. Last time Mississippi State made it to the Final Four and lost to Syracuse, I played an April Fool's joke on the listeners of mine in Mississippi that said, State's going to be allowed back in because Syracuse played an ineligible player. That today is a prank, an April Fool's stunt that probably would have gotten me fired, but it did not at the time and got a lot of attention. Tim Murtaugh is joining me now. Tim Murtaugh is a former communications director for President Trump, now founder of Line Drive Public Relations. Tim, it's great to see you.
You bet, Scott. Good to see you. Good to be with you again. Thanks for having me on.
A lot of stuff that we can cover today, but obviously everybody is talking about the tariffs, which are set to go into effect immediately tomorrow afternoon when the market closes. A lot of talk about this and what the effect on consumers may be. I got to be honest, I've never been a tariff guy. I've always been a free market guy, but I do understand what President Trump is trying to do here.
Yeah, look, I think most of us on the right side of the aisle, center right, and even people center left, like to consider ourselves free market folks, and I'm certainly one of those. But I think when I hear the people freaking out about what President Trump is going to do or is threatening to do with tariffs, I wonder if people forget that he was already president once before,
right.
And he slapped a lot of tariffs on China, as everybody can recall, and Joe Biden screamed and yelled, and all the Democrats screamed and yelled about those. But when Joe Biden became president, what did he do? Did he remove them? No, he didn't. As a matter of fact, he left them all in place. And I think a lot of times when you see, now I don't know what's going to happen here over the next 24 to 36 hours. I don't think anybody does. But we have seen over the course of the last few months, last 2 months really, since Trump has been back in office, in that sometimes the tariffs don't even need to take effect before he gets exactly what he's hoping to get from these other countries. Yeah, it's just right. And so he views it as not only a way to protect American industries, which he certainly does view it that way. Just look at what he's done with tariffs regarding the auto manufacturing, for example. And that's to protect American auto manufacturing. But also he uses it to try to get diplomatic concessions from other countries where for example, he threatened Mexico with a variety of tariffs, and it was over what he perceived to be their non-assistance with helping to police our southern border. And what do you know? He threatens tariffs, and the next thing you know, Mexico says, you know what, we're going to send 10,000 troops to the border to help you police the border. And those tariffs never went into effect. So I think you've seen Trump use these to great effect as a weapon, or even a sort of a theoretical weapon, because people know he will use them. And I think in order to be effective, people have to see that you do have a track record of actually putting into practice what you say you're going to do. And I think that means that people are taking him seriously. So we'll see. But, this is a longstanding tactic that he's had.
And Tim, it seems like these tariffs may be so high and draconian, but it's because the trade imbalance has gotten so out of hand over the last 4 years.
It depends on which country you're talking about, sure. But, and again, we'll see what reaction there is from these other countries. I just saw a thing on X that Israel has decided to drop all tariffs that it has on American goods. And so we don't know what the end result of this is going to be. And I think it does end up in a little bit of uncertainty with the markets because markets don't know how to quite react to these kinds of things. But if you look past over the course of the last few decades, when was that great moment of certainty? When did everyone know that exactly what was about to happen next? I'd love to know when that time was. So the markets are uncertain things just sort of by their very nature. So again, we'll see what happens, but no one should be really surprised by any of this. President Trump loves tariffs as a weapon, as a diplomatic weapon, and also as a means of protecting American-based industry. And that's what he's doing here. And I think that he has earned the right to pursue this policy. It's not like it was a secret. He talked about it on the campaign trail extensively.
And we certainly saw how the economy thrived pre-COVID under Donald Trump in his first term. So I'm expecting much of the same, and we'll see how effective these tactics are. A lot of talk about what the effect on the consumer will be, because in many ways, companies will pass down these tariffs to the consumer through increased price on their goods. And that makes it even more critical, in my opinion, to make the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the first Trump tax cuts, permanent, so we don't face an even greater expense when these tax cuts are set to expire. That needs to be a priority of this Congress.
Yeah, sure, exactly right. And if anybody to the left, if Democrats, if they're talking about not voting to extend the Trump era tax cuts or whatever they call them, however they derisively refer to them, if those tax cuts expire, it's a tax increase on everybody who pays taxes. everybody who pays taxes. The Wall Street Journal and the Washington Post and the New York Times, after, of course, they ran their great opposition campaigns, New York Times and Washington Post in particular, when President Trump was trying to get the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act passed in the first place, they talked about how, oh my gosh, this is just for billionaires and whatever else. But then they were forced to admit, yeah, you know what? If you pay taxes at all, then you got a tax cut. In the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. After the fact, after they tried to kill it, they admitted that everybody who pays taxes got a tax cut. So absolutely, that's very important to make permanent, because if you don't make it permanent, it means your taxes are going to go up. Everybody.
Yeah, and some of the other things that Donald Trump is talking about includes tax relief for those receiving Social Security, no tax on tips. Those are all important things that would wind up stimulating the economy.
Yeah, no tax on tips for people in the service industry, no tax on your Social Security benefits. If you receive a Social Security check every month, Donald Trump wants to take no income tax out of that. That would be a new policy. And also, if you're working somewhere where you get paid hourly and you get overtime hours, there would be no tax on your overtime pay also. These are all really very important things for people who either work hard for a living or are dependent upon their set income, their fixed income benefits that they get from Social Security that they paid into all their whole lives, and now probably don't think you should be taxed on it at the back end after you've been paying into it your whole life. So those are all very, very important policies. And I think these were clear ones that, heck, they were so good that Kamala Harris tried to steal some of them on the campaign trail while she was running her failure of a campaign for president. But those are very important things. And I think that the Democrats know that they just lost an election on which those were some of the issues involved. And I think they're going to be, it would be to their detriment if they try to stand in the way of having those things enacted into law.
And I need to apologize. You just saw a cameo appearance from my producer, Tiger the Cat, walking across the video screen. Got tired of me continuing to talk about the importance of these tax cuts.
So
talking to Tim Murtaugh, former Trump communications director, founder of Line Drive Public Affairs. Before Congress can get to making the tax cuts permanent and giving us more tax relief, which is important as we head into April 15th and tax day, we've got to deal with budget reconciliation. And I know one of the things that you've been talking about is a little known provision in the budget that we've got to address, and that's the Biden pill penalty. Can you explain to us what that is?
Yeah, the Biden pill penalty, it's actually part of the Inflation Reduction Act, but this can get resolved. Congress can remove it and get rid of the Biden pill penalty through budget reconciliation, through other legislation too. That's possible also, but budget reconciliation is probably where it's actually going to happen. And the Biden pill penalty is this. In the Inflation Reduction Act, which most people don't think did a good job, and it certainly didn't attack inflation.
It didn't reduce inflation at all.
No, it certainly didn't do that. 3/4 of Americans think that it was a failure, by the way, according to McLaughlin Research. But contained in the Inflation Reduction Act, the poorly named Inflation Reduction Act, is a thing that's been come to be known as the Biden pill penalty. And what it means is there's two different, I'm trying to explain this as simply as possible, two different categories of pills, one or of medicines, of drugs involved here. One is called biologics, or large molecules. Those are things that you usually get through IV or vaccines, things that are injected. You have to go to the hospital, go to the doctor to get those things. Those are the large molecules. Small molecules are pills, basically. And the two things, pills and large molecules or biologics, are treated differently in the Inflation Reduction Act. In fact, the runway for when the government starts to set price controls is longer for the biologics than it is for the pills. What that means is almost all of the research dollars are no longer going to research medicines that come in pill form. They're going to the biologics, which are already more expensive, or they're going somewhere else entirely. Investment dollars are going to, say, AI or to oil or somewhere else entirely outside of medicines. And what it means is, since 2021, when the Inflation Reduction Act was first introduced, research and development dollars for pill form medicine is down 70%. 70% less money is going to research and develop new pills. And the University of Chicago has done a study on this. It's pretty dramatic here. Since this inception, 188 different new medicines or applications of existing medicines have gone undiscovered because of the Biden pill penalty. And the University of Chicago estimates, get this one now, 116 million life years have been lost by living Americans. That is, the life expectancy of currently living Americans has been reduced by a total of 116 million years. I mean, think about that. That's all because think of that, what the government can do with legislation. It can either create incentives or it can create disincentives. What the Biden pill penalty did was practically force investment dollars and research and development dollars away from pill form medicine and into other things. And that has caused all kinds of catastrophes. And we know that pill medicines are the most convenient. People are most likely to take their medicine that they need if it comes in pill form. And if they can get it, they can get pills through the mail. They don't have to drive to the doctor or somewhere else to get an IV for some of these biologics. I mean, it's really remarkable. The Biden pill penalty is dramatically bad for consumers, for the entire healthcare industry, for patients, for seniors. It's really bad, and Congress has a chance to fix it through budget reconciliation.
Yeah, these small molecule drugs are cheaper. They're more accessible for most of us. So it's hard to comprehend why the Biden administration would have punished pharmaceutical innovation. Well, was this perhaps, I don't know, and I'm not a conspiracist, another ploy by the Biden administration to control healthcare?
I can't tell you exactly why it was put in there, but they did put it in there. And you're right. Most people do. They're cheaper. They're more accessible. And let me tell you what they also are, because they're small molecules. And that's not something that most people think of, small molecules, and meaning pill form medication. Small molecules are able to cross the blood-brain barrier, as it's called, which means that these are medicines that can work on things that affect the brain. They can actually get into the brain and help. That means what we're talking about are medicines that help with mental health or Alzheimer's patients or many forms of cancer. All of these things are very important, and it's just not treatment that you can get with the larger molecules thing. And that is exactly why the Biden pill penalty is really that bad. It also harms generics. Think about in the case of Lipitor, it's a cholesterol drug. Lipitor is the brand name, but because of the influx of generics into the market, you can get your cholesterol medicine for pennies. And that's because of the market that generics get involved in. Well, with the Biden pill penalty, there's a disincentive for generics. There's no real reason for you to compete to be the first generic drug to enter the market in a particular lane because of the Biden pill penalty. So it also really does it tamps down the market for generics. So it hurts in that regard too. So it really gets you coming and going. The Biden pill penalty is an utter disaster. And it's no wonder that about 90% of the people who look at 90% of seniors who look at the Biden pill penalty know that the Inflation Reduction Act was a complete and total failure.
Just to kind of bring things full circle, it's really anti-free market as well. When you look at the pill penalty, it flies against free market principles. It seizes drug pricing power without any sort of compensation and really hamstrings all of the pharmaceutical companies.
It really does. And if you think about sometimes people on the left say, "Oh, look at Europe and look at their wonderful thing. They get their medicines for cheap." Well, guess what? They're free riding. They are able to get their medicines for cheap because the United States is the one that's producing all of the research and all the development of new drugs. If America went to the same model as the European model, no one would be conducting any research at all, and we would be basically stuck for all time with the current crop of medicines that we currently have, and there would be no further advancements to it. Another one, and I know this will matter greatly to your audience, China has recognized this as well, and in just the last 3 years has immensely stepped up their research and development of small molecule or pills. Whereas it used to be that worldwide, the new entrance into small molecule Chinese only accounted for 3% of the new clinical starts. Now that's 28% is now attributable to China, and 3/4 of those are for pills or small molecules. So China understands the opening that Joe Biden gave them here with the Biden pill penalty. And China is really going in a way that only the Chinese economy can do this. They are laser focused on trying to make up ground and overtake the United States as far as dominance in producing new medicines because Joe Biden opened the door for them with the Biden pill penalty. So there's that too.
We've really got to find ways to rejuvenate pharmaceutical innovations in America. And as Donald Trump is working to do, bring the manufacturing of these pharmaceuticals back to the U.S. so we're not dependent on other countries like China when we need these drugs.
Oh, exactly. Right. And so, Joe Biden made this big deal about, oh, I'm going to have my moonshot is going to be, we're going to find a cure for cancer. But then he creates this Biden pill penalty, which is actually an obstacle for that because it absolutely takes away any incentive for companies to continue to do research on drugs that fight cancer. So, in fact, he's working against finding a cure for cancer by doing the Inflation Reduction Act with the Biden pill penalty in there. It is President Trump who has the opportunity to really pull out all the stops here and go great guns, go 100% forward. And I don't know exactly what his view is on this, but I know that he's aware of it. And we do hope that President Trump sees the value in getting rid of the Biden pill penalty. And I know he loves to, he has a practice of loving to undo the problems that his predecessors caused. And maybe this will be one of them. And it certainly Congress has a chance. Your viewers and listeners can contact their member of Congress and tell them to get rid of the Biden pill penalty and reconciliation. That would help a lot.
And Tim, we could take this one step further. It's interesting to see Democrats opposing many of the things that Bobby Kennedy wants to do to make America healthy again, to where we don't have to rely on some of these drugs like Lipitor as much. If we're getting healthier, if we're not as obese of a nation as we are today, we don't have to rely on as many of these drugs as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. The Maha movement as part of MAGA is, I think, really very significant. And I was a senior advisor on the 2024 campaign, and when Robert Kennedy got folded into the campaign there, it really opened up a whole new group of people who were willing to hear what the MAGA movement had to say. And I see, going back to just some sheer politics of it, Donald Trump has a lot of different skills and talents that he brings to American politics, to business for sure, and to television after that, but to politics as well. And one of his superpowers, and really probably his most effective and prominent superpower, is his ability to make his political opponents absolutely lose their minds. And that's what happened. You can have
week his trolling America and trolling the media, talking about running for a third term, which constitutionally prohibited, but the media went nuts when he started talking about that yesterday.
He knows exactly what he's doing when he talks like that. But
buttons.
you could have the Democrats opposing oxygen tomorrow. If Donald Trump came out and said, "I'm for oxygen," the Democrats would automatically be opposed to it. Then they'd have to figure out why they're opposed to it. I mean, it's just,
we're all going to hold our breath for the next 4 years.
It's insane. He makes them lose their minds. But somebody had lost his or her mind when they put in this Biden pill penalty into the Inflation Reduction Act, which was generally a bad piece of legislation in the first place. But that one part of it has to go.
We can make our voices heard. Let our members of Congress know that this has got to be a part of reconciliation to eliminate the pill penalty today. Tim, it's great to see you. I appreciate your time. I know you got to run.
All right. I appreciate you, Scott. Thanks for having me on. And until next time, thanks.
Tim Murtaugh, founder of Line Drive Public Affairs, former Trump communications director here on the Scott Sands Show. I started to mention as we were talking about Robert Kennedy and making America healthy again. Of course, my friends at RixaHealth.com, the program I've been on, my weight loss journey for the past 14, 15 months. I've lost just over 100 pounds. Did a before and after picture. I should share this on social media. My friend Emily, who used to work at Fox 36, was in town for opening day. The last time I had seen her was at a Mud Hens game before she moved to Wisconsin. And the difference in the two pictures we took on opening day Friday and 14, 15 months ago, I can see it. I don't like to brag about it, but it's been a remarkable journey, and you can learn more at RixaHealth.com. And in fact, they've got a podcast of their own now, which is just launched on all of the podcasting platforms. It's called Health Without the System. You can find it on Apple and Spotify, all of the podcasting platforms. Worth a listen, especially one of their upcoming episodes, which is about Big Cereal, the Big Cereal conspiracy. I don't think that's what it's called, but it's about all of the lies in the food pyramid. It's a fascinating show, and they recommend a lot of healthier snacks that you could get if you're also on a weight loss journey. But some of the information is amazing. Friday on Super Talk Mississippi, when I was filling in, talked with Michelle Polino about White Lotus. Specifically, someone I know from Laurel, Mississippi is a star of the White Lotus and went viral on the Today Show because of her fake North Carolina accent. But there's another story involving White Lotus too, which is, I think it's one of the most talked about shows of the season. It's on HBO, White Lotus, and it's been making headlines for something other than its racy content. Mainly, Duke University isn't happy that one of the main characters in the Sunday night drama is wearing Duke merchandise. It could be that the university is actually benefiting from the exposure, especially with their March Madness run, their Final Four run. However, they're making a trademark claim in the White Lotus because of the merch that's being worn. For anybody who hasn't seen the show, it stars the Ratcliffe family, a father-son duo who are both Duke alum, which is used to set the scene for a Southern family steeped in traditions. Meanwhile, the mom and daughter went to UNC, went to North Carolina, Chapel Hill, which creates a world where the youngest son is having to decide between the two schools. But the women, decked out in their fabulous resort wear, look after one another, never don the Tar Heels apparel. Only Duke seems to get its logo on the screen, which is the origin of the alleged trademark issue. The Duke t-shirt worn during some heavy scenes has already made appearances in episodes 5 and 6. Episode 7 airs this coming Sunday. The VP of Communications, Frank Tramble at Duke, told the New York Times, and I'm quoting this, Duke appreciates artistic expression and creative storytelling. However, the characters prominently wearing apparel bearing Duke's federally registered trademarks creates confusion and mistakenly suggests an endorsement or affiliation where none exists. In the same article, two legal experts agree that Duke would find it difficult to win in court. One professor who specializes in intellectual property law at the New York University School of Law said that the courts have consistently sided with the artists unless a storyline misleads potential consumers. In this case, a fictitious university called Duke. On the one hand, I understand that Duke is trying to disassociate themselves from perhaps the content of the White Lotus of the show. On the other hand, by filing this trademark suit or saying, hey, stop wearing our merch, they're actually drawing even more attention to this. Now, does Hollywood need anyone's permission to use trademark material? Eddie Murphy probably wore a Detroit Lions jacket in Beverly Hills Cop in those movies, and Tom Selleck wore a Detroit Tigers hat in the Magnum PI series. In my opinion, for the most part, this is all just free publicity for Duke and the other universities. Jamie Wietrikowski, owner of Four Guys and a Roof, a locally owned company, is joining me now on the Scott Sand Show. Jamie, always great to see you, my friend.
Absolutely, Scott.
We're just diving right into it. Listen, I wanted to talk with you because we got more storms on the way. Some people got hit by storms this past weekend on Sunday, may have caused some roof damage. There were some pretty high winds, and the storm that's coming through tomorrow could produce some hail, high winds, maybe even some tornadoes, and all of that is potential damage to people's roofs.
Yes, Scott. With the high winds, when you get an older roof, the seals start to fail. The glue that holds the shingles on top of each other starts to fail over the years/decades. And these high winds slowly chisel away at them. And over the course of several storms over several years, those tabs and those shingles can totally break loose and be ripped off the roof.
Yeah, do these back-to-back storms make things potentially worse?
They can. Imagine the wind coming at you and it's chiseling away at these seals and it's lifting the tabs up. And then slowly but surely, as they lift up and we get some warm weather, they're going to lay back down and lay flat. But when we get back-to-back storms, they're pried up, and eventually, boom, right off the nail heads, and they're in your yard.
Yeah, so we didn't really have a severe winter this year, which is good, I guess. But there was enough ice, there was enough snow that could have set things up for a catastrophe with these spring storms that are moving through.
Yeah, Scott. Even though we did not have a bad winter, lots of snow, ice damming, the weather does start to wear and tear on the shingles, the cold, everything. You have expansion and contraction and everything. So when stuff like this happens, it's quickly found out when it rains heavily in the spring that how bad your roof took a hit over winter.
Yeah, are there other contributing factors that could make things worse? Stuff clogging the gutters, or some puddles, maybe some basement leaks where your foundation could be getting wet and showing signs of weakness.
The foundations would be more of your downspouts being plugged and water shedding down the sides of your foundation, along with bad grading of your property. More related to the roofing, the snow, basically, when it just builds up on there and it gets underneath the shingles and they're not sealed properly, they can over time rust the nail heads out over time. And we're talking the course of 20 plus years. But at a certain point, those nails, once they get so much water and rust, the nail heads just fall off and water can start seeping into the roof several different areas.
You talk about over the course of like 20 years. How long can an average roof last?
The new roofs that we install, they're guaranteed from the Owens Corning for 50 years with proration, of course. Being a platinum installer, we can actually install the roof and give you a lifetime warranty with 50 years, labor, and material with the upgraded platinum protection that we're able to sell through Owens Corning. On average, most of the manufacturers currently offer a 50-year limited lifetime warranty. 25 years ago, when I first got started, it ranged from anywhere from a 20-year roof to the maximum of 30.
So the technology has certainly improved, and with a warranty, that gives you a lot of peace of mind for your home ownership.
Absolutely, Scott. So when it comes to warranties, it's nice when you're paying that little bit of money up front. When you're doing a roof, it might seem like a lot, and an average warranty can cost anywhere from $500 to $1,500 depending on the size of your roof. But the peace of mind that you get from that small investment, 10 years from when you have it installed, if something were to happen and the manufacturer's free warranty falls off with the proration, and you spent that extra $500 10 years previous, everything is covered 100%: labor, materials, dumpster, and the cost of living increase. So there's nothing out of pocket whether the roof fails at year 10 or year 48.
And certainly, you mentioned when you started 25 years ago, it's important to point out that you've been in business for almost 3 decades. You're locally owned. You know the people, you know the weather in Northwest Ohio, the people that you service, and the roofs that you install. I want to get back to the storms for just a second, Jamie. Obviously, if there's damage, you're going to see it with water leaking into your house. But there are other signs of damage that you may not notice unless you actually inspect the roof.
That's correct, Scott. There's actually, you can have water intrusion, and sometimes it just doesn't make it to your living space. Sometimes when water leaks in around a valley or around a chimney, and you have proper insulation in your attic, it can be absorbed or held in suspense in your insulation, so you might not see the water until it's to the point where the wood is rotten in your attic and water starts to pour in. So it's not a bad idea to have go up in your attic if you have easy access and just do a flashlight, look around, look for wet wood. And if you do find any, then call a professional company like Four Guys on a Roof to not only come and inspect inside your attic, but actually get on your roof and do a thorough inspection of your soil pipe boots, your flashings, skylights. Any penetrations in the roof are a potential leak hazard.
You and I have talked about this before. You actually recommend inspecting your roof at least like once a year.
I advise that for most customers if the roof is around the 10-year mark. Right after about the 10-year mark of a new installation is when your soil stack gaskets that go around your pipe boots that vent your gases from your house, those neoprene gaskets can start to fail because they're exposed to UV light and they're made of rubber. So over the course of 10 years, UV light destroys and breaks down anything that is rubber. So at the 10-year mark, it's always advised to start looking at your flashings around your chimney, how they're adhered, if they're caulked with Solar Seal or tar, your pipe boot flashings, which I just mentioned, your skylight penetrations, around the 10-year mark is when you can start to say, hey, it's not a bad idea to spend $150, $200 every year or 2 years to prevent massive drywall damage in the future.
Yeah, I'm personally starting to show signs of UV damage myself.
Oh, we all do, Scott. We all do, some better than others.
Jamie Wietrukowski, 4guysonaroof.com. Jamie, if anybody does have damage from the storms that are passing through, you can get them an estimate pretty quickly today.
Scott, we can actually get them estimate in usually about 12 hours or less. We can have it in their email box, full written explanation of what it's going to cost to replace the roof from A to Z. And if they're having minor issues like some small leaks, we'll dispatch one of our professionally trained repairmen to come out there, assess what they have, give them an estimate before they leave the house, along with, if the opportunity arises, they might even have the materials to do the repair on site that day and save everybody time and money.
Yeah, and if you need a full roof, you can get that done as well. And
Yeah.
you've got some good financing available too.
Oh, we do. We have some great financing options. Right now we have 18 months, same as cash with no payments. They would just need to call Mike in the office at 419-343-8648.
Jamie Wietrukowski, 4guysonaroof.com. Again, with the storms passing through tomorrow and with spring storms on the way, or if you just need a new roof, you should call 4 Guys on a Roof. Get on the schedule. The spring schedule will start to fill up fast, but do that at 4guysonaroof.com, especially if you have any roof damage from the storms, because you don't want things to get worse. You don't want to cause any more damage to your house.
No, like you mentioned previously, Scott, and I said, around the 10-year mark, and if you don't know how old your roof is, it doesn't hurt to give us a call. It's a free inspection. It doesn't cost you anything. We can dispatch a repair crew out there, usually within hours, or if it's really bad, within 48 hours from the storm. But let us assess it. There might even be a chance that it's an insurance loss, and possibly your insurance could cover roof replacement for you.
And every time one of these storms comes through an area, you get a bunch of fly-by-night people that come in and swoop into town, and you don't know who to trust. But you're a local guy, and you're rated by BBB and all of the other organizations that you're a vendor that people can trust.
Absolutely, Scott. So we like to inform our consumers that we get what we call them storm chasers. They might even have a local 419 or 567 area code, but they'll set up shop when a big storm comes through. But we advise all our customers just to do a little research on who's knocking on the door, where they from, where they located. If they do the work, who's going to warranty it if they are only temporarily in town. I advise all my customers to go with a local company like myself, or somebody with the same accreditations that's licensed, insured, workers' comp, that they are backed by the installer of the manufacturer of the product they're putting down. Those are the key factors, because these fly-by-night storm chasers, they're just in it to make the quick dollar and then move to the next city or state within the next week to 10 days.
Speaking of making a quick dollar, I look forward to taking your money tonight at poker night.
I wish you luck on that. It's like a storm that comes through, Scott. You just hope for the best, and we'll see where the money ends up flying by the end of the night.
Jamie Wietrukowski, 4guysonaroof.com. Great to see you, Jamie.
Absolutely, Scott. Good to see you again.
One last thanks to a partner of the Scott Sand Show, Alp Nicotine Pouches. I still can't get the camera right. Alp Nicotine Pouches. Look, if you use nicotine pouches, and this product does contain nicotine is an addictive chemical, must be 21 or over. These are moisture. I think the flavor lasts longer. And I'll share a link where you can get Alp Pouches with a 10% discount if you use my link. It's the company that Tucker Carlson founded. Still can't get it right. Everything is in reverse. I got to remember that. The link is in my bio on my link tree and in the comments below. Tomorrow on the show, or this week on the program, the next podcast episode, we'll talk to Donovan O'Neill from Americans for Prosperity of Ohio. You got to learn about their Buckeye Blueprint, and join me on April 15th for a tax day rally at Wildwood Metro Parks. I'm looking forward to that. State Rep Josh Williams will be the featured speaker, along with several others. I'm hosting the event on April 14th in the afternoon. All the information's on my page as well. A tax day rally with Americans for Prosperity on April 15th. Also, as I mentioned, Yvette from Bougie Sports will join me, talk about what's happening with the Browns and other Cleveland sports teams this week. Please be sure to subscribe. Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Stay safe in the storms tomorrow, and have a great Tuesday.